Let's get one thing clear right from the start. Women aren't nearly as mysterious as they'd like us to believe. Are they complicated? Absolutely. But impossible to understand. Not even close. The truth is, every woman, no matter how poised, confident, or seemingly unreadable, has emotional weak spots, hidden soft buttons that, when touched with precision, cut through all the noise and reach her very core. Now, don't get it twisted. This isn't about manipulation. It's about awareness, stoic awareness. While most men run themselves ragged, trying to impress, trying to please, or bending over backwards to be liked, you'll be the one who stands apart, calm, centered, and quietly dangerous in all the right ways. In this video, we're uncovering the 9 emotional weaknesses every man should understand. Not to play games, but to stop being played. Some of these insights will catch you off guard. Others might make you smirk, and a few, well, they might just help you finally understand why a breakup in your past unfolded the way it did. Either way, buckle up, because what you're about to learn will flip the script on everything you thought you knew about attraction. And if you're ready to move past confusion and step into control, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. This isn't about being the nice guy. This is about becoming the right man, the kind of man no woman forgets. So let's dive in. Number 1. Confidence that doesn't beg for permission. Here's something most men don't realize until it's too late. What truly pulls a woman in isn't noise, it's presence. Think about it. Behavioral psychology studies reveal that people naturally mirror the emotional state of whoever they're around. So picture this in the context of attraction. If you walk into a room dripping with neediness, insecurity, and over-explanation, that's exactly the energy she feel and reject. But if you enter calm, grounded, and unshakably confident, the kind of confidence that doesn't need to announce itself, it doesn't just attract her, it disarms her. That's the real weakness. Not the loud, flashy kind of confidence. Not the performance, but the quiet self-possession that doesn't flinch when silence lingers, doesn't crumble when she pulls away, and doesn't need outside approval to feel worthy. Too many men smother women with validation, over-promising, over-giving in desperate attempts to prove their worth. They don't realize that the harder they chase, the less she feels. Here's the paradox. She only feels safe when you stop chasing her approval. That's exactly what Stoicism teaches. Hold your ground. Act. Don't react. Stay steady through her tests, her mood swings, her games. What a woman truly craves deep down isn't control, it's containment. She wants your strength, not dominance. She wants your direction, not your noise. She wants your stillness, not your scrambling. When you can sit in discomfort without breaking, when you remain composed without shrinking, you send a message louder than any sweet words ever could. You're not trying to win her over, you're simply rooted in who you are, inviting her to step into your world. That's not just attractive, it's magnetic. And most men never reach that level, because they're too busy proving instead of becoming. Confidence isn't about posture, it's about the silence inside. Master that, and she leans in not because you forced her to, but because she can. Feel she doesn't need to be everything for you. That kind of energy doesn't just command attention in the moment. It lingers in memory long after. Number 2. Being understood without having to spell everything out. At some point in life, especially as we grow older, emotional exhaustion starts to replace emotional outbursts. Because silence, for many women, isn't about the absence of feeling. It's about the cost of expression. Over time, especially for those who have carried emotional weight for years, silence becomes a shield. Not the kind born of peace, but of exhaustion. The exhaustion of being misunderstood, dismissed, or unfairly labeled as too much for simply sharing their inner world. And this is where most men stumble. Not because they are cruel, but because they're distracted. Their minds race ahead, already preparing a response, rushing to fix the problem, or sidestepping discomfort. All the while, they miss what's right in front of them. But the man who pauses, the one who looks into her distance without demanding explanations, without pressing for clarity, but instead holds steady presence, that man disarms her without a single word. I'll never forget a story of a woman in her late 60s. She had lived through 2 marriages, endured more pain than she ever revealed, and wore her silence like armor. She told me the moment she fell in love again wasn't during some romantic gesture or a passionate confession. It happened when a man noticed she wasn't herself, and chose simply to sit beside her. No questions, no advice, no attempt to pry open her silence. Just warmth in stillness. She said it was the first time in years she truly felt seen. The Stoics remind us that wisdom lies not in endless speech, but in perception, the ability to sense without controlling, to observe without judgment. This is a skill modern men have forgotten. Yet it's exactly what women long for. Not to be endlessly analyzed, but to be quietly understood. Not to be entertained, but to be deeply felt. If you want to know one of the deepest keys to a woman's heart, it's not found in grand declarations or clever lines. It's in the quiet consistency of attentiveness. It's in your ability to witness her pain without retreating, without rushing to fix her. It's in your strength to hold the space rather than offer answers, in a world that never stops talking. The man who learns to feel without reacting is unforgettable, not because of what he says, but because of how completely he listens. Number 3. Masculine silence in the right moments. There is a kind of silence that wounds, and a kind that heals. One feels like abandonment, the cold shoulder, the calculated withdrawal meant to punish. But the other, the silence born from a man who has mastered his emotions, carries a different weight entirely. That silence is presence. Very few men reach the maturity to embody it. When confronted with tension, most panic. They talk too much, over-explain, justify endlessly, believing that noise equals control. But in truth, it only exposes emotional instability. A man who reacts to every provocation shows that his inner world is still unsettled. And women, they notice, not always consciously, but instinctively. They can feel the cracks in your composure. They sense when your silence is fear rather than strength. But a man who holds his tongue not out of pride, but out of principle, who chooses stillness when others scramble to speak, that man is operating on another level. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Silence, then, is not retreat. It's not weakness. It's the discipline of standing firm without wasting energy on chaos. When emotions flare, when tests arise, when conversations turn manipulative, your greatest weapon is not your voice. It's your restraint. As Seneca said, speech may be silver, but silence is gold when it is timely. And in relationships, that couldn't be more true. Because the more you speak reactively, the less your words matter. But when silence comes, from grounded awareness, not avoidance, it commands attention, it commands respect. She may not grasp it immediately, but she will feel it. In a world that never stops shouting, that kind of calm presence is magnetic. Stillness is not weakness. True masculinity doesn't collapse under pressure, it anchors. You don't need to win every argument. What you need is to win your peace. And often, that begins not with speaking, but with knowing when to say nothing at all. Number 4. Deep eye contact that doesn't flinch. There's something ancient, almost primal, in the way a man holds another's gaze. It bypasses charm, posture, or even words. Deep, steady eye contact is a forgotten art today. I'm not talking about the quick, polite glance you toss to a stranger at the grocery store. I mean the kind of gaze that holds still for a moment longer, just long enough that most people instinctively look away. That subtle second makes all the difference. It's the space where self-respect lives. It's where fear hides. And tragically, it's also the place where most men falter. I once met a retired Navy officer at a veteran storytelling night. He was in his late 70s. With that unmistakable steel-eyed presence that never asked for attention, it commanded it. While younger men in the room filled the air with restless chatter and nervous laughter, he sat quietly, not withdrawn, not distant, just fully present. When someone spoke to him, he didn't rush to answer. He looked directly at them, calmly, steadily. That moment of stillness often unsettled the speaker more than any sharp reply could have. His gaze wasn't aggressive, it was honest. It carried the unspoken weight of a man who had already seen more than most could imagine. It said, "I have nothing to prove." That was his power. Stoic philosophy teaches us that true strength begins when we stop reacting and start observing. And this is exactly where most men lose their footing. When a woman locks eyes with them, really locks eyes, they retreat. They fidget. They overthink, their gaze flickers, shoulders tense, and insecurity seeps through every tiny movement. Instead of simply being, they scramble to perform. And women notice. They may not put it into words, but they feel it instantly. The truth is, deep eye contact is not about seduction, it's about mastery. When you can hold her gaze without needing to win her over, without silently begging for her approval, you separate yourself from the crowd. You stop being just another man in the room. You'll become the man she remembers. Because your stillness speaks louder than any practiced line ever could. It says, I am grounded. I am enough. I am not here to chase. I am here to witness. And, in a world overflowing with noise, the man who can meet her eyes and remain unshaken becomes unforgettable. Not because he impressed her, but because he didn't flinch. Number 5. The need for mysterious depth. Here's a psychological truth that may surprise you. Studies show people are more drawn to those who reveal themselves gradually, not manipulatively, not through mind games, but by allowing mystery to build naturally through restraint and presence. In an age of constant oversharing, the man who doesn't spill his entire identity in the first conversation stands out. He becomes magnetic. And yet, here's where most men get it wrong. They confuse mystery with avoidance. They think disappearing, giving half answers, or hiding behind emotional walls makes them intriguing. But that isn't mystery at all, because the shallow version of mystery, vanishing, withholding, playing half-truths, that's just immaturity. Wearing cologne. Real mystery, true masculine mystery, comes from depth. It doesn't disguise itself behind a mask, and it doesn't need theatrics. Instead, it rests in quiet confidence. A man grounded in Stoic principles doesn't scramble to explain himself in order to be understood. He knows that what matters most isn't the noise he makes, but the weight of his presence. Women aren't pulled toward men who disappear and reappear like shadows. They're drawn to men who feel like a book worth reading slowly, chapter by chapter. Men who measure their words carefully, who let meaning unfold over time, who don't empty their entire lives onto the table in a single sitting. The Stoics called this self-containment. And self-containment is not about emotional isolation, about refusing to spill yourself out desperately just to win someone's curiosity. In practice, this means you speak when there's substance, not just to fill silence. It means being fully present, without shoving your entire story forward like a resume of your worth. You listen more than you talk. You answer only what matters. And you leave space for discovery, space for curiosity to grow. That very space is where attraction is born. Not because you're hiding something, but because you've stopped trying to be understood all at once. Mystery isn't about being unreachable. It's about being so rich in depth that others want to reach you. When you live this way, not to manipulate, but to protect your own soul, every word you choose carries more gravity. Every silence becomes intentional, and every interaction leaves behind an echo. So if you've been oversharing just to feel seen, or proving yourself with endless details, pause, breathe, reclaim your stillness. Let people earn the right to go deeper into your world. In fact, type it right now in the comments. I lead with depth. Because from this moment forward, you don't need to act mysterious. You only need to be whole. Number 6. Her soft spot for a man with purpose, not just passion. Epictetus once said, "Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it." And the older you get, the more powerful those words become. Because at some point, all the noise, the ambition, the spark, the excitement starts to fade if it's not rooted in something deeper. So let's clear this up once and for all. Many men believe passion is enough. They think being loud, chasing dreams with fiery energy, and showing endless enthusiasm is what makes them impressive. But passion without direction is just chaos. It's fire without a hearth, intensity without an aim. Women may be briefly attracted to that spark, but it's not what makes them stay. What truly grounds her, what moves her to trust and remember you, is purpose. Passion may fuel you, but purpose gives you structure. Passion gets you started, but purpose keeps you moving when everything else falls apart. Most men talk endlessly about what excites them. Very few walk steadily each day toward what anchors them. And it's the latter, the man of purpose, that she remembers. The man she trusts. The Stoic man doesn't rely on hype. He doesn't need applause or external validation to show up and do the work. He wakes up not with distractions, but with clarity. What is mine to control today? What can I shape with focus, not just force? That's what sets him apart. He isn't volatile, he is aligned. And that's exactly what she longs for. She doesn't want a man who needs her approval just to keep moving. She wants a man who would walk the same path with or without her eyes on him. That kind of man is unshakable. That kind of man creates trust. And here lies the paradox. The less you chase approval, the more powerful your presence becomes. And that brings us to the next truth about feminine weakness, one that flows directly out of living with unshakable purpose. After grounding ourselves in the difference between passion and purpose, let's go one step deeper. Because when you stop burning fast for attention, and instead burn slow with discipline, everything about you begins to change. She feels it, Not just in what you say, but in your posture, in your calm, and in the steady clarity of your presence. If you've been confusing constant movement with real meaning, or chasing quick spikes of passion, hoping that will impress her, it's time to stop. Anchor your energy. Ask yourself this simple but powerful question. What am I building that would matter? Even if no one applauded, even in silence. That's right, there is purpose. And whether she says it aloud or not, that is exactly what she craves. Type it below. I move with purpose and I mean it. Because here's the truth. You don't have to sell who you are when you're already living it. Now, this takes us to something even more subtle, yet deeply magnetic. Her hidden yearning to be led without ever being controlled. Let me share with you a moment I'll never forget. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, but it revealed more about real masculine leadership than 1,000 lectures ever could. I was at a small-town train station in Virginia, watching an older couple, probably in their 70s. The woman was clearly upset, her shoulders tense, her voice sharp with frustration about a delay. She carried heavy bags, her anxiety written in every gesture. But the man, he didn't argue. He didn't try to dismiss her feelings or talk her out of them. Instead, he simply looked at her with calm eyes, nodded, gently lifted the bags from her shoulder, and said nothing. That silence spoke louder than any words. He led her with presence, with stillness. He didn't fix her emotions. He didn't try to win a debate. But you could see the shift instantly. Her posture softened, her tone quieted. She let out a breath she'd been holding. That wasn't dominance. That was direction. And she trusted it. Most men miss this entirely. Real leadership isn't about barking orders or overpowering emotion. It's about creating an atmosphere where she feels safe enough to stop performing. Safe enough to stop carrying the weight of leading everything herself. And in today's world where so many women have been forced to hold it all together, that kind of presence is more than rare. It's sacred. So when I say women yearn to be led, I don't mean controlled. I mean clarity. I mean the strength of a man who doesn't crumble when life gets messy. The man who doesn't need to win arguments, who doesn't chase comfort, but instead holds the room steady. He leads with calm, and in doing so, he becomes unforgettable. If that resonates with you, type it below. I lead through calm, not because you need to say it, but because it's time to live it. And stick around, because what comes next is even more powerful. A force quieter than leadership itself, yet far more magnetic. Her vulnerability to words that can paint entire new worlds. Here's a truth you may not expect. Studies in cognitive neuroscience reveal that women retain emotionally charged language far longer than neutral content, not only in memory, but in emotional response. That's not resonance. It means your words matter more than you think. But let's be clear. It's not about spouting clever lines or pretending to be poetic. That kind of performance fades quickly. Real power in communication comes from presence. When you're grounded, when you speak not to impress but with clarity and intent, everything changes. Women don't respond to polished perfection. They respond to words that carry depth. Sometimes, a single sentence spoken with stillness, intention, and genuine emotional insight can cut through her walls faster than 100 flashy compliments ever could. And remember, words that carry presence and depth don't just pass through her mind, they linger, shaping how she feels long after the conversation ends. That's the kind of resonance most men overlook. Stoicism sharpens this clarity. A true Stoic man doesn't speak simply to fill the air or to be noticed. He speaks because his words are aligned with his inner world. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." Extend that truth a little further. Her mind becomes dyed with the color of your words. When your speech carries presence, insight, and emotional intelligence, you don't just become memorable, you become unforgettable. Think about it. You're not just filling silence with noise. You're painting entire inner landscapes she can return to, even in moments when you're not around. So next time you open your mouth, ask yourself, am I shaping her inner world, or am I just passing through it? If this resonates, type it below. I speak with vision, but stay with me, because what comes next is even more magnetic. It's not louder than words, but it carries a weight that words alone can never match. Number 9, her unspoken need for a man who can walk away. Let me tell you about Andre, a 61-year-old former Marine I met in a quiet community library. He wasn't the loudest presence in the room. In fact, he barely spoke at all. Yet the moment you were near him, you could feel it. Steady, grounded, unshakable. His presence spoke before he ever did. I still remember the story he shared about Linda, a fiercely independent woman he met after years of being widowed. She was vibrant, used to handling everything herself, always in motion. But when she was with Andre, something shifted. Not because he led her with dominance, and not because he tried to impress her. In truth, he hardly said much. What he did was listen, fully. When she vented, he didn't jump in with solutions or advice. He let her storm crash against the stillness of his silence. And over time, something remarkable happened. Linda softened. Her voice lost that edge of battle. She began to touch his arm more often. Her laughter carried a different tone, lighter, freer. Why? Because Andre didn't flinch. He didn't crumble under her fire or try to extinguish it with words. He simply stood steady. His presence became her safe space. That's the secret most men miss. Emotional safety isn't about solving every problem or rushing to rescue. It's about creating a space where she doesn't need to protect herself anymore. That's the kind of man a woman entrusts with the most vulnerable parts of her soul, not because he demanded them, but because he earned them. He earned them through calm, through presence, through inner command. And here's the truth. You don't unlock her softness by demanding it. You don't reach it by lecturing, pleasing, or fixing. You get there by showing, day after day, that no matter how loud the world becomes, you remain steady, not emotionally distant, but emotionally untouchable. That's Stoicism in action. Marcus Aurelius put it best. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Be the space where she exhales. Be the man who never needs to say, "You can trust me," because she feels it in the way you sit, in the way you breathe, in the way you respond when her chaos shows up. If this truth resonates with you, type it below. I create safe space because in the end, the man who earns her softness isn't the one who pushes harder. It's the one who holds the frame steady until she chooses to step into it. And let's be honest, if you've made it this far, you're done playing small. You're done chasing her approval. You're done trying to win with noise. From this moment forward, you lead with presence. What we've uncovered here isn't just about her patterns. It's about your power. The kind of power you've been leaking through people pleasing and chasing. No more. Go back. Rewatch this. Let it sink in where it stings. Then rise as the man who doesn't flinch. If this felt like a mirror, good. That's where growth begins. Subscribe to Mind of Stoic if you're ready to stop being forgettable. Because this space is for men who evolve, quietly, powerfully, permanently. Speak less, hold more power. And never forget, her chaos dies in your calm.